What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with ScoopDuck on 3, coming to you on Thursday, July 24th, 2025. We got a lot to get into in today's episode of the pod. We got some recruiting to talk about and plenty from Oregon's appearance at Big Ten Media Days in Los Angeles. The 3-day extravaganza comes to a close today on Thursday, but I am not rolling solo. I am so fired up to be joined by Big Ten Ted himself, Ted Leroy. How the heck are you, man?
I'm doing great. It's, as you said, we're wrapping up Big Ten Media Days, and really that's the start of like when you start to get that football feel in is when you get to late July and everybody's talking about, hey, we got these guys coming back on offense. We got these guys kind of coming back on defense as well. And you kind of start to feel it a little bit. You get that excitement a little bit. So it's great. This is a great time of year. We got about a month and change to go until the Ducks kick things off against Montana State on August 30th. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk some ball.
Absolutely. I'm fired up, man. I'm going to be making my way out to Eugene just a little bit before you are, I believe. I'm going to be there for the team's media day on Monday, July 28th. So super excited for that. And then fall camp starts just 2 days after that, scheduled for Wednesday, July 30th. So Ted, let's not waste any time, man. Let's talk about the biggest news of the day so far. Oregon picks up a commitment from 2027 four-star Nashville, Tennessee, Brentwood Academy wide receiver Keyshawn Bowman on Thursday. The second commit for the Ducks here in the 2027 class, and one that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. I know you and I were talking about this before we hit record here, but I was kind of told by one of my sources, like, hey, Max, this is a guy that's probably worth keeping an eye on if I were you, but I wasn't expecting a commitment to come this early, but here we are. We got another top 50 nationally ranked wide receiver coming to play in Eugene for Ross Douglas.
I mean, Ross Douglas is doing it, man. Ever since he stepped onto campus, he sealed up that recruitment, of course, with Messiah Hampton. Of course, that was kind of starting off when he was working at Syracuse, and then Jalen Lott, and then you talk about Bowman as well. The thing that really stands out to me, and we might see it here on this clip or on YouTube, is the long speed. A little bit underthrown, but certainly the long speed, and so much. I was kind of watching his highlights and his tape earlier today, and it's just right off the line of scrimmage. He just outruns everybody on the deep ball, and it's on this. I think it was like an 11-minute highlight footage. It's just clip after clip after clip of doing that. So he can certainly get over the top. There's some stuff defensively on his tape, certainly as well. I think I was reading some stuff today was where maybe he kind of started off a little bit as an athlete, but he's really starting to find his footing, maybe a little bit more as a wide receiver. I think he's sitting a little bit maybe on the smaller side. I think right around 160, if I remember correctly. But speed for days is really the first thing that popped out to me, and it's like, it's kind of gone into the trend really of this class. It's just playmakers all over the field, with Tredarian Ball and Hampton and Lott and Harrison at tight end. I mean, there's so many playmakers, so much speed, and it's the continuation of what really has been laid for the wide receiver position. Of course, with DeCorian Moore, you could go back to the class before of Gatlin Bear and Jeremiah McClellan, Cooper Perry thrown in there as well. I mean, they're recruiting this position better than they ever have.
Yeah, there's so much to like about Oregon's wide receiver prospects and just the future of the room moving forward. And I think that obviously a lot of people have eyes on the position for this season with Evan Stewart banged up and expected to miss some time. But Ross Douglas has done a tremendous job since he joined this staff coming over from Syracuse, like you mentioned. Yeah, you miss on guys like a Chris Henry Jr. or maybe more realistically, a Caden Dixon-Wyatt. Both of those guys are over at Mater Dei. But I mean, for Messiah Hampton, I think he kind of quickly became the priority guy and someone that you were kind of, I think as a Duck fan watching these other guys come off the board, like they got to get this guy. I mean, he's the New York guy, the East Coast guy that he already had a relationship with. And then I did an interview with Jalen Lott recently for ScoopDuck where he talked about how big his relationship with Dan Lanning was in his eventual commitment to the Ducks. So the wide receiver position's hot right now, and Bowman has had some really good production in his high school career, over 1,000 yards as a sophomore last fall, 8 touchdowns. I think it was just shy of 60 balls that he caught for the Brentwood Academy Eagles, who went 9-4 last year. So even though this is a really early commitment, Ted, I think that there's plenty that you can find to be excited about here if you're a Duck fan.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty to be excited about. I think here with Bowman, really ensuring that future at that position. Nobody really recruits this position like Ohio State does. We all know that. You kind of mentioned about Chris Henry Jr. and Caden Dixon Wyatt, but you kind of look around the rest of the country. We know LSU historically has recruited this position really well, but man, it's hard to find a team out there these last 4 cycles or so where a team that's outside of Ohio State that's maybe recruited the wide receiver position as good as them. And, this is kind of in that year number 4 range with Bowman to be able to kind of get him in there and really continue that trajectory. I think the thing with Ross Douglas, we saw his 1 year. I mean, he had such kind of a smaller young coach, right? A smaller body of work, did some stuff in the NFL with the Patriots. And you saw the production of that wide receiver group last year at Syracuse, right? The top passing offense in the country. And you look at the wide receiver, like so many guys saw their best season that they ever have. It's like, okay, Ross Douglas in that year, yeah, he can get a lot of guys really playing at their best. But I think the big question is like, what's he going to do on the trail, right? He hadn't really had a ton of experience, a ton of proving ground to see what he could do from a recruiting standpoint. And that was maybe like a question I had coming in is like, because Junior Adams did so well. I mean, he kind of really started this thing, right? If we're talking about this being a golden age of Oregon wide receivers, he got it going. Right. And could Ross Douglas really continue that? And I think the answer is so far it's looking like a pretty resounding yes, that it seems like, yeah, he's got some pretty good chops on the recruiting trail as well.
There are a couple more, aspects I want to dive into here with Bowman before we talk about Big Ten Media Days, Ted. You spoke about how we're kind of maybe in this golden age of receiver recruiting for Oregon, right? And I don't think that there was much doubt that Ross Douglas was going to be a great receiver, especially when you have that Oregon O behind you, when you have Dan Lanning as your head coach that you can recruit these guys to come and play for, in addition to obviously Douglas himself. But the thing that I'm kind of curious about, and I don't mean this in an overly critical way, Oregon's recruited the position really well, but up until maybe this fall, right? Like we were just talking about, we haven't seen a lot of those young guys make their way onto the field. So the question that I kind of want to pose for this conversation is, Junior Adams is a phenomenal recruiter and he has his share of guys that he's developed, but there's got to be some reason that we just haven't seen those guys break through, and we've seen Oregon kind of go to the portal a bit.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of some of those guys. The last Tez Johnson came out of the portal. Trayshawn Holden, of course, came out of the transfer portal as well. And this like overall, and maybe we'll touch on this when we talk about media days as well, like the wide receiver position is such a good microcosm because it's like this year seems like the true beginning of like this large amount and mass of Dan Lanning recruited guys that are finally going to get their opportunity. And wide receiver seems like, especially now with the injuries Evan Stewart, it's kind of like, well, somebody's got to step up if we're gonna try to achieve our ceiling as a team this season as well. So yeah, I kind of get it, and that kind of goes into a lot of the team. That's been maybe a talking point with some fans out there. It's like, man, every December we hear about this 5-star kid and this 4-star kid and this top 5 class and this top 5 class. We love that. And we love that in December, but man, we want to see these guys on the field. I think this year is finally that opportunity. So many names out there at the wide receiver position, from Jeremiah McClellan. I think he was 24, class of 24, if I remember correctly. You got Kyler Casper in there, Jurion Dickey. I mean, he was a former 5-star guy. When we talk about those high-profile guys on these December early signing periods, he was one of those guys. And so there's certainly been some issues with his time in Eugene, but I kind of heard from somebody that says this is the best spring he's had so far. So this is an opportunity for Jurion to really show what he can do. But yeah, I think out of necessity, this 2025 season is really the season. I think it's excitement. It's exciting. There's some unknowns, right? When you kind of put your wide receiver 1 role in the hands of a true freshman, best recruited guy that Oregon has gotten at that position. Very excited about what Takorian Moore can certainly do, but he is a true freshman. But we did see what true freshmen did last season at Alabama and Ohio State, certainly. But yeah, it's exciting. I think what this wide receiver room is going to be like in the future, and I think this 2025 season, I think you're really going to start to see exactly the fruits of the labor of Junior Adams, and then maybe of course a few years down the line, certainly maybe not this year, you're going to see the fruits of the labor of Ross Douglas, what he's been doing on the recruiting trail. Really excited to see how this wide receiver room develops with Ross kind of taking over, because we saw so many guys, like I said before, have their best seasons as a college player when he was at Syracuse last year. If that happens, this could be a dynamite passing attack for sure.
And when we evaluate the wide receiver position, Ted, I don't think that we can gloss over Rashad Samples, who may be coaching running backs now, but he has extensive experience with the wide receiver spot as well. So I think he's a guy that needs some credit for that Jalen Lott recruitment, obviously being in his home state of Texas. But I find that I'm leaning more into the excitement than maybe that uneasiness or that uncertainty at the wide receiver spot. And there may not be a spot I'm more excited about. If there is one on this team, I think it's to see what they do at defensive back, because they lost that entire secondary from last year, and boy, they have recruited the heck out of that position. Last little piece I want to get to before we talk Big Ten Media Days, Ted, is Oregon's push into the Southeast. Bowman is the latest in those efforts. Obviously, you saw the Ducks get Naeem Offord from Alabama last year. They've done some tremendous work in the state of Florida lately with Devin Jackson and Xavier Larise in the state of Florida. And maybe he won't be the last one. I think the staff would certainly hope he's not the last one, with a guy like Deuce Gerald's in Georgia and then Tank Jones in Alabama as well. What do you think about Oregon's push into the Southeast?
I mean, it's a lot of great players, certainly in that area. There's a ton of great players. But here's the thing about this is, like, they have their tentacles all across the United States in really these fruitful areas, and the Southeast is certainly one of them. And it's like, when you guys always say chopping wood, right? When we talk about a recruitment, and sometimes maybe in some of these areas, okay, you flip Naeem Offord one class, and now Zaire Addison, I believe, came out of the state of Florida, Tampa, if I remember correctly, at the offensive tackle. He was kind of 4-star, top 100, 150 type of player out there. It's just like, you just do it like one guy at a time. Same with Texas, right? You get one guy here to start, you get another guy here, and now all of a sudden, you're getting Tredarian Ball in the same class. You're getting Jalen Lott in the same class. And the class before that, you're getting DeCorian Moore. And all of a sudden now, pipeline. The pipeline word kind of starts to come to fruition as well. So we know what Texas and the Southeast really are as well. So being able to kind of tap in to certainly some of those areas. I mean, you guys all the time at ScoopDuck, it's distance. Everybody kind of, when they think about Southeast or, some of these East Coast recruitments, we all know about the state of Maryland and what's been happening over there with Nacho. Nick Abrams is another name out there as well. Distance. But, you continue to get that pipeline, and you get guys who have come from this area that have successful careers at Oregon. And I think that maybe makes that distance a little bit easier, and it makes the Southeast, Texas, certainly a little bit of a pipeline. You talk about Rashad Samples, though. I mean, the DeCorian Moore recruitment. I mean, he's got that immediate connection, certainly within family there. That certainly helped that as well. And that, you start to build this year and cycle over cycle over cycle, and you're going to have a lot of success. And it certainly appears that 2026 is kind of the continuation of what has been set up by the staff.
Some great stuff there, Ted. I really appreciate it. Wanted to just take another moment to welcome you guys if you're tuning in here, whether you're on YouTube, here on the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel, or Ted's channel, That Show Out West. Excited to have Big Ten Ted, a.k.a. Ted Leroy, here on the show with me on a Thursday. We're wrapping up some recruiting talk, but before we talk about our next topic, got to give a quick shout out to scoopduck.com. You guys got to come check us out. Awesome community over there. Ted can say for himself, he's joined the community. He's contributing some stuff for us over there, and we really love having him around. Awesome message boards, and there's no better time here, especially post-Rivals merger and with the 2025 season just around the corner. Come and see us at scoopduck.com. Try us out today. You won't regret it. Ted, let's turn the page now to Big Ten Media Days. The Ducks took center stage in Las Vegas on Wednesday. Dan Lanning, Mateo Uyunglele, Kenyon Sadiq, and Bryce Betcher, the representatives for the reigning Big Ten champions, and those guys in the green and yellow. I mean, I'm going to give you the floor here, man, and open it up. Where do you want to start with kind of our takeaways from Big Ten Media Days?
Oh, man, where do we begin? It's kind of one of those things. I guess I'll start with the Dan Lanning press conference, the one televised, the first one by Big Ten Network. It's when you're watching it live, it's just, all of this information that kind of comes in, and it's just like, some things like, oh, okay, it doesn't really stick in your head. But then when you kind of rewatch that press conference and some of these other things, it's like, oh, there is certainly a lot there to break down. Of course, double down, he says, is the theme for this this season as well. And it's like we started this show with recruiting, right? And it's doubling down on the process, doubling down on the plan. It's like there's a few position groups out there. We talked about defensive back, right? How many outside of Dylan Thieneman? Those are recruited guys. Okay, you look at Ify Obadegwu, you look at Kingston Lopa, you look at Aaron Flowers, you look at all of these players out there that have been recruited and are staying in here. Like, okay, we're doubling down. We know, and we have a lot of confidence in the guys that we brought in. Linebacker, Dan said it after the spring game. When he was asked, "Hey, you going to bring in a linebacker for the portal?" Nope. We believe in our guys. We believe in Braden Platt. We believe in Dylan Williams. We believe in Jerry Mixon. We believe in Kamar Matudi. All of these were recruited guys for the Ducks. So they're doubling down on that process, their roster building, just everything. And it's clearly worked, right? They elevate every single year in the win total. Eventually, that's going to be capped off, right? You can't elevate to 18 or 19 wins or something like that. There's only certain amount of games during the season. But that's certainly the first thing I think that stuck out during the press conference. And, man, I've been shouting it from the mountaintop since February. Kenyon Sadiq. There was about a streak, I think, on TSOW where I think I talked about him like 3 or 4 straight shows during like February and March. And it's like we've heard Will Stein. Okay, he said during the spring, it's like, hey, he can be the best tight end in America. We heard Drew Maringer really rave about him during the spring as well. And now Dan Lanning is going out there and says, yeah, he can be the best tight end in America. He's tearing it up when me and my son play on CFB 26. So it's just, the hype continues to build for him. I think he's a one-year guy. Because everybody's looking at him, first round pick, maybe second round pick, something like that. They're already having those conversations with Kenyon Sadiq. And obviously with the injury to Evan Stewart, I think you're going to see a lot more of Kenyon Sadiq lined up out wide or in the slot. They did that with T. Ferg a little bit, and of course Sadiq as well last year. But now, and then I have a feeling that they've got some confidence in Jamari Johnson, the tight end that's coming over, where you could see a package in 11 personnel where you do see Sadiq lined up in the slot and really take advantage of his athleticism and skill set, but also see Jamari Johnson on the field at the exact same time. So that's certainly another takeaway that I had from that. And, all three representatives at Big Ten Media Days, okay, were all recruited players from Oregon. Okay, now none of these guys were transfers. Bryce Betcher, we all know his story, right? Double walk on Eugene Hayes, like, hey, sour taste in my mouth after the Rose Bowl. We got to finish this thing off on the right foot. Mateo Uiagalelei, right? We know his story. Last year, leading the Big Ten in sacks during the regular season. He's somebody that I think nationally he deserves, I think, a little bit more recognition. I truly believe that. I think he can be one of the best pass rushers in college football. No doubt about it. You don't have like the Abdul Carters, the JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyers in the Big Ten anymore. So he's certainly going to be, I think, in that tier as well. And then Sadiq, as I just talked about it. So now, like, this is like such a huge theme for me for 2025 is to just, is really the turnover from a lot of these transfer guys that we've seen. And you have to do when you're building and you want to build a program in your image and vision. Yeah, you need some transfer guys that kind of fit and kind of plug a hole for a year or 2 years as well. And we've certainly seen that. But now it's really time to kick things into gear and say, hey, this is Dan and Marshall and Tosh and Will. This is their vision about what this year is going to be, and to kind of circle back. That's what doubling down is all about. This is who we are. This is who we're going to be. And it's certainly a lot of exciting things from media days, but those are kind of the main things that I took away.
Yeah, I love the theme of doubling down that you kind of got into there that Lanning spoke about, Ted, because I guess last year it was good to great, and now I think it is maybe just doubling down. Like, hey, the proof is in the pudding. We've got 3 seasons under our belt here, operating with Lanning at the helm, and the results have been pretty darn encouraging. I don't know how you can say anything other than that. Save the Rose Bowl loss to Ohio State, who won the national championship. So I like that mentality from Dan, especially given the fact that you have this youth movement of sorts at a number of positions on this roster. And like, as someone who's covered recruiting for a while now, I think that's just what makes me so excited, is because I finally get to see some of these guys that I covered coming out of high school get their shot. And you can say that at so many different positions. So
Yeah.
it does feel like a prove it year to some degree for
Yeah.
me with Dan Lanning because of what we just said, that he has so many of his guys that, I mean, almost pretty much all of this team now is his guys. Like there's maybe 2 or 3 guys that Mario Cristobal had some hand in recruiting. I know we were talking about that earlier today on the message boards over at ScoopDuck. So
Mm-hmm.
I love the mentality, and the excitement around Sadiq is undeniable. And especially for just the West Coast. I know he's from Idaho, but like out west,
Sure.
he might be one of the better tight end prospects that we've seen head to the NFL since Brock Bowers. And I know he just got there, but like that's the kind of vein this guy is being mentioned with.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to see how they lean into how they want to use him in a variety of ways. And then I covered Jamari Johnson when he was coming out of Inglewood before he went to Louisville. So like there's just so many connections of guys out here on the West Coast, and I couldn't be more excited for this year.
Yeah, and I think I remember an interview sometime during the spring that Marshall was having. He says like you can build a championship team with this talent on the West Coast in these classes here coming up. So there's no doubt about that, man. They got something in the water out there in Idaho. Colston Loveland, the former Michigan tight end, is from Idaho. Kenyon Sadiq, Kelvin Obot, right? They're like, yeah, they're producing some pretty good players out there as well. So, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of excitement with everything that we've been hearing with these recruits. And like you said, it is time to prove it. It's time to prove that the talent evaluation and these guys that they've been bringing in as of late that are truly going to achieve that high ceiling, because I think we agree. The transfer portal is a great spot to kind of, plug holes and kind of grab certain spots. But if you really want those high ceilings at some of these positions where it's hard to get a player that's out of the portal, I know, like I'm going to throw 2 positions out there, offensive tackle and secondary. Most of the time, those are kind of more difficult positions. You got to recruit really highly rated players, even though the Ducks got Dylan Thieneman and Isaiah World. So this year out of the portal. But usually there's just certain positions on the football field where it's like, yeah, not every day you get a lot of great players out of the portal every single cycle. So it's just important to be able to fill your roster, fill your depth. And this is really that's why I'm excited about this year, is just like we really get to see the fruits of the labor of what they've been doing on the trail.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge focus of the team this year. And
yeah.
I think another thing that was exciting is just the physical growth we could talk about a little bit that you saw from the off season. I think that was great seeing Lanning kind of give a tip of the cap to Wilson Love and the rest of that strength and conditioning staff, saying that they've put on a collective over 1,300 pounds this off season. Peak power numbers have gone up 21%, whatever that means. Here's one that's tangible. Lanning said our freshmen, the average gain for our freshmen is over 17 pounds. So these guys, a lot of them got to campus in December, January. Some of them joined the team for the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Like I was seeing pictures of Brandon Finney and Ife Obadegu on social media, and those guys are cut up and they look like they have the frames and the bodies to be competitive and have some kind of a role on this year's team. So I think the physical growth that you saw from those guys just kind of gives credence to what Lanning has talked about with the benefits of enrolling early and how that almost functions that spring as almost an additional redshirt year. So just can't speak enough about how valuable that time has been for those young guys.
Man, it's just important, to be able to get into that college strength and conditioning program that Wilson Love that you mentioned has been able to do. Like, man, we had a recent reclassification of Prince Tavazon. One thing that kind of pumped up into my mind is, maybe some of these guys looking to reclassify to kind of really get their body going early, to get into that with the weight room and strength and conditioning, maybe even a little bit earlier than enrolling early as well, so they can get in there for spring ball. But I would love, if I could see a chart out of all of these numbers, I would love to see what those guys on the defensive line have done over this time, because it's like, I mean, those guys already have Big Ten measurables. Amari Washington, Teon Gray, Terrence Green, we know Bear Alexander's coming in. Like, these guys are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 320 pounds, 330 pounds. If we're talking about these kinds of numbers that Dan was talking about, I would love to see if those defensive Jericho Johnson might be the biggest of them all, right in there. I think I thought he was close to 340. I would just love to see if those guys are even putting on more muscle and girth there in the middle like that. That's one part I think about this team that I've been gushing about it this offseason on TSOW, where I'm like, these guys, it's like that's been a big difference of what Lanning and this group have been, that mindset they've brought in. It's like, yeah, we need to be just big at the line of scrimmage, and that's what they are. You saw, Caldwell and Harmon, transfers that came in last year, they were big and they certainly made some plays, but now once again we come back to these recruited guys are kind of coming in and doing that. So if those guys get even bigger, just watch out. That's and I think I tweeted this before. I'm like, if Bear Alexander is playing close to an all-conference level, good luck, because there's depth here, there's size there, and the big gains are certainly apparent.
And the defensive line's a great group that we can talk a bit more about, Ted, because Mateo was at Big Ten Media Days, and it's kind of hard to describe for someone who maybe hasn't been around him super long, but like Mateo's growth just into his personality and being a little more outgoing from when I saw him at St. John Bosco to now, like you can tell he's got a little bit more pep in his step. He's got some confidence. He's got some swagger. He has some really big performances under his belt, like the first Ohio State game or that Wisconsin game that they do not win if they don't have number 10 out there on the field. I think that it's not a foregone conclusion that this year's defensive line takes a step back from last year. Like, I'm not sure that that's something I'm ready to, say is going to happen for sure. And you lose three NFL caliber guys in Caldwell, Harmon, and Birch, right? Yep. So like they've recruited the hell out of that position, and there's so many guys that just haven't seen the field too much, but they were developing behind NFL caliber players, and I think they probably learned a thing or two, Ted. They're physically ready to go, and there's guys that we haven't even seen much of, like a former 5-star in Elijah Rushing who redshirted last year. Like we don't know much about him. Aiden Breland has been talked about as one of the best interior defensive line pass rushers that they have on this roster. So, and then Tatum Tuioti and Mateo, they kind of, I think, raise the floor of that group as some really stable, consistent guys. This defensive line could be a handful for Big Ten opponents this year.
You might have missed my favorite of them all, and that's Blake Purchase.
Purchase Blake right now. Purchase that stock, because, man, he was an absolute monster during the spring game. I mean, he was doing everything. I rewatched that spring game, like almost play by play a couple of times now. And I'm like, every time Blake Purchase is he is beating these. I get understanding that some of these guys are second team guys that are on the other side, and it's kind of mixed and matched during spring practice, but he's winning every single battle. Of course, he redshirted last year, but there's been a lot of optimism within this staff from Tosh Lapoy and company. Like when Tosh, I think it was during the spring, when he talked about him, he talked about his NFL future, not just maybe his future here at Oregon. So that really tells you what they think of a guy like Blake Purchase. And like a huge key, Michigan is a team that's had a lot of success with this, and they've got it again this year, is depth. You need to be able to rotate bodies up front of the defensive line, I think, to be able to keep a lot of those guys fresh up there. So, like the defensive line and the pass rush has a complementary relationship with the secondary, right? If you can get to the quarterback more consistently and quicker, then on the back end of it, okay, the defensive backs don't have to go out there and cover for 3 seconds or, all that time that the quarterback has in the pocket. So if this defensive line kind of gets back to there, and they're going to help out a young secondary and an experienced secondary as well. So that's a relationship that I think could really work out well in favor. So maybe once you get to game 7, game 8, game 9, game 10, okay, now the secondary kind of has their feet under them because they've kind of been helped out by the pass rush a little bit as well. So yeah, I will continue to shout a few things to the mountaintops, and the defensive line is certainly one of them. I can't wait to see what Bear looks like this year. It's just there's a lot to be excited about. A lot of people out there, PFF and some national groups, are putting Oregon as a top 10 defense. And I think a big reason for that is this defensive line, is this pass rush, and what they're going to be able to do.
Before we get to maybe one last topic today on the show, Ted, I want to get to a quick question that we got from one of our live viewers here, and it's hilarious because we were talking about it right before we went live. Andrew, longtime friend of the program, friend of the show, with a question that you and I were just kicking around. Anyone think that 2027 wide receiver Bowman reclassifies to 2026? And it's just funny because he just committed today, but we have some precedent here, seeing that Prince Tavazon reclassified from 27 to 26. So, I mean, I haven't heard or seen anything to lead me to believe that that's what is going to happen. But maybe I have to ask around a little bit internally, seeing that the Ducks do only have 2 wide receivers committed in 2026, but you also have to factor in the anticipated return of Gatlin Bear from his LDS mission.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something I'm expecting to happen right now, but I mean, we'd kind of be foolish to rule it out.
I know it's just funny every time you see one of these the kids commit from 27. A lot of people ask, is he going to reclassify? Is he going to reclassify? It's just kind of the way of the world, and it's kind of how it's working right now. So I'm very curious to see what happens here. Of course, I know one guy that's been really thrown out there is Jalen Brewster on the defensive line, the 5-star from 27, which the Ducks are certainly high in as well. That's one that I'm really hoping for, because on the defensive line, of course, we know what happened with Ami Malawa. We know what happened with Tom. That like defensive tackle, nose tackle guy has maybe evaded Oregon, kind of where they're sitting right now. So, that's I mean, you guys have talked about that over at ScoopDuck certainly a lot. But it's just something that gets brought up each and every single time. But it's kind of as you know very, very well, it's part of the changing landscape of college football recruiting right now. Everybody kind of wants to get into the program as soon as possible.
All right, last thing for us today on the show, Ted. It's been awesome chatting with you again, man. We got to get you back on the show like more regularly.
Let's do it.
I think the listeners would love it. So I'm gonna be heading to Eugene for Oregon Football Media Day, and I think one of the things that I want to try to do is focus on some of the true freshmen or redshirt freshmen that are made available to the media. I haven't covered this event since 2021 when Mario Cristobal was heading the program, so there may not be a lot of those guys made available to us, but I want to try to see what their transition's been like. And then just what I want to kind of dive into a bit more is the chemistry and growth of this offensive line. You have so much talent and so much experience, but it's all at other schools for the most part, with the exception of Kavika Rogers and Dave Iuli, Pancho Lalaulu. Those are the main returners that have played at Oregon and been there their entire careers. And then on the back end in the secondary, what does that chemistry kind of look like? How much of a revolving door are we going to see throughout fall camp and maybe even into the season as they try to kind of shore up what those starters look like at offensive line? I think that's a little bit clearer than the secondary.
Yeah, I think, some things that I'm looking forward, I think, to hearing from. One guy I think that I would be very curious to kind of hear his journey back from injury is Gary Bryant Jr. At wide receiver. He's a guy, you got all these, with the Stewart injury, you got all these pieces kind of floating around. Okay, who's going to step up? Certainly a wide receiver. And then you got a veteran out there. I think Gary Bryant Jr. is a perfect fit into the slot. A couple of years ago, 2023, the Bo Nix, great season there for Oregon. I think he had over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think it was, just off the top of my head. He was kind of that, but we know he's battled injuries. So how has that process been coming back from injury? And, he's kind of like the elder statesman. He's kind of like the dad in the group, so to speak, in there. He's kind of been around college football for a while. And, so I'm curious about that. Jurion Dickey, if he's made available. That I think would be very interesting to really be able to hear from him and really hear about his process as well. You mentioned the secondary, just especially those younger guys that we right now anticipate to maybe be in starting roles, like the Lopas and the Iffies and certainly guys like that, and how they're coming along and how they're kind of gelling together. Of course, Thieneman is that guy that's showing them, hey, this is how you be a professional. This is when you got to show up to work. This is how much work you got to do. This is what you got to do in your off time, film study, all of that stuff certainly as well. You kind of mentioned the offensive line that we know all about last year and kind of how it all started, the shuffling of the pieces at the start of the season. Now with this season, like they have really good players. It's just, but we've seen when you're an offensive line, 5 has to work as one, right? They all got to work together. They all got to gel together. But yeah, I'd be very curious to kind of see how that's all kind of going together. I really like the team media days, because you get to see and hear from so many more players. You just get a little bit of a sprinkle at these conference media days with some of the leaders and some of the veterans as well. But, like you said, maybe some younger kids will be made available to see kind of, hey, what was spring like? What did you kind of learn during that period and all of that? I mean, Like you said, who knows if they'll be made available? We have yet to hear. We've kind of heard some podcast interviews from Decorian Moore. Can't wait to hear from him what he's kind of thinking right now, especially after the Evan Stewart injury. I'd be very curious to see some of his answers, because I'm sure someone would go and ask him, hey, you're the guy now. How are you kind of taking that in? Would love to kind of see, because he seems like a really confident guy. So that would be kind of interesting to see. But those are kind of some things that I would be very curious. I'm sure I'll be paying attention what you have to write about and report on over there as well. So I'm very curious to see some of the answers that come out of the team media day coming up.
We're close, Ted. We're close, man. The season, it's so close. I think I said I can feel it in my bones over on ScoopDuck the other day. But it's gonna be an exciting time, which is why we want as many people and as many Duck fans to come and see us at ScoopDuck as is possible. Ted, before I let you go, man, just if people don't already know, just give us a little rundown of kind of what you got going on here, because I know you're doing some incredible work of your own.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can follow me. You can follow the show, That Show Out West, the Oregon-specific content from a little bit of an unbiased perspective, a little bit of a neutral observer's perspective, even though that seems to be changing more towards the green and yellow each and every single day. But you can follow me over there. I'm starting to get in rhythm of like 2 shows a week. That's how I'm starting, because once we get into the season, we'll be doing a recap on game days. We'll be doing a preview later on during the week before Saturday. And then on Saturdays live, after like about 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, after the game ends, we'll be doing a live stream on Saturdays after every single game with hopefully some viewer phone calls and comments and all the stuff that goes into a YouTube live stream as well. So really excited. This is kind of when we started this thing in January. This is what we're building up to and building up to and building up to. So I'm thankful for everybody that's kind of come along for the ride. It's going to be a good time as well. Still doing some Big Ten coverage there over on the Big Ten TED side as well. So we're so close. I am so conflicted, Max, because man, it is what I can't do math. It's close to 10 days, and I'm going to be going out to the mountains of Oregon, and that is something I cherish every single summer. The one big trip to the West, I cherish it every single year. But man, we're like a month away from football. I don't know which direction. I'm supposed to not wish away summer, but I'm so excited for football. So it's a conflicting time, but I can't wait to check out Eugene. I can't wait to see the whole state. It's going to be great, and I can't wait for the season to start on August 30th.
I'm excited for you to check out Eugene as someone who lived there for a couple years and knows how special of a place it is. I'm excited to get some Dutch Bros when I get up to Eugene. I got some recently when my fiance and I were in Spokane. So that was nice. I always look forward to that. But man, it's been an absolute pleasure, Ted, having you on. You guys make sure to tap in with Ted wherever you guys are listening to this or following on social media. You can find me anywhere at M Torres Sports. Subscribe to the ScoopDuck On Three YouTube channel and come and see us at scoopduck.com. Share the show, share the Duck Stage podcast with everyone you know, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.